Chemical attack in Syria. The United States, France, and England retaliate. Russia threatens war. Iran sits by idly, threatening Israel. What is really going on? Coming up next on Deceptions of the Ages News. Hello everybody and welcome to Deceptions of the Ages News. The first things I want to do is I want to thank you all for subscribing. Oh, I just said it. I gotta watch out because that thing's gonna come out. It always comes out here and then... Oh boy, ouch. Ow, it snuck up on me that time. Oh, ow, Anyway, well, so if you guys could hit that subscribe button, that would be really great because this is kind of painful. Okay, so anyway, let's talk about this Syria issue. So last week, the United States retaliated against Syria, against Assad, for this attack using chemical weapons. Now, boy, why is the United States, France, and England suddenly so hot on this country of Syria? They've used chemical weapons before. Well, of course, on the surface, every time somebody says chemical weapons, then immediately the bombs start flying. So using the excuse for chemical weapons is always good, but I actually saw this on the news by me actually talking about how there might be something fake involved because the Russians are saying something fake. Then I could be accused of being a Russian agent for questioning anything that the media says. So anyway, media, you whatever. But I'm going to question everything the media says because we need to find out what's really going on. Otherwise, we don't have Deceptions of the Ages News, now do we? All right, so the first thing we need to talk about is we need to talk about Syria. This is Syria. This is the location of Syria. The reason Syria is important for us right now are a number of particular reasons, but we need to understand, as we always do, a little bit about the history of Syria and its relationship with its neighbor Israel. 1967 war, the Israelis did not want their enemies like Syria, who had sworn their destruction, looking down on them with artillery emplacements and missiles and mortars and troops ready to infiltrate across into Israel. So Israel in 1967, they annexed it using a brilliant maneuver. They had a spy named Eli Cohen who knew everything about the Syrian emplacements, and they quickly occupied quite a few Israeli paratroopers died, but they occupied the Golan Heights, and with a brief interruption in 1979 to 81, have occupied it ever since. All right, now remember that. Israel owns the Golan Heights. All right, now we're going to take a little bit of a tangent here, and we are going to talk about Turkey and Qatar. All right, now here is the map. Here is Turkey, and here's Qatar, okay? So Turkey and Qatar wants to, they sell natural gas. They have a lot of natural gas. Turkey wants to build a pipeline that runs through Turkey and goes to Europe. And that way, they also, I think they have natural gas, and they can also tap in and sell their gas. Now, this is just a great idea. It's brilliant. It works out for everybody. Unless you are the president of Syria and you have a alliance, a treaty with the Soviet Union. Now, the conflict comes into play when we see that the Soviet Union with Iran wants to build a pipeline as well, but they want to build it from Iran over to Syria, and then they want to build an underground pipeline into Europe. All right, so you have two competing interests trying to build this pipeline. So that is one thing we need to think about. Next thing we need to think about is another situation that has developed in what is called the Golan Heights. And actually, I believe the Golan Heights overlook the Bekaa Valley. I'm sorry if I'm wrong. But we talked about the history of the Golan Heights a few minutes ago, so we're going to continue now and say that, guess what? In the territory that Israel occupied because they want to deny the strategic advantage to their enemy, they found oil. They found oil and gas and a lot of it. So what did they immediately do? They formed a company. The company is called Genie. And now let's just take a look at who are on the board of the Genie company. All right, well, we start off with who else but Richard or Dick Cheney, and we know that whenever Dick Cheney is around, death and destruction is sure to follow. But look at some of these other players. We have former New Mexico Governor Richardson. We have a former CIA director in Woolsey. We have Rupert Murdoch, who's going to take care of the media for the company. And you have, of course, a Rothschild, who's going to give the company unlimited access to funds and, of course, military action if it's needed. So what does Syria and the rest of the world have to say about this? Well, the fact of the matter is nothing. They would be, whoever is saying this, I mean, everybody knows about it. And whoever occupies this land is going to become very wealthy. Now look at this. You have three poor Arab nations, Syria, well actually two poor Arab nations, Syria and Jordan, and then you have Israel. And they are all annexed, they all annexed this Golan Heights. So it's going to be very interesting, and of course the logical way to do this is just to share it, right? But of course that's not going to happen. That's why you have the company of Genie with all of these big hitters on their board of directors. They're not messing around. So I think that in the future what you're going to see as Israel goes to develop this, you're going to see a UN, they're going to call for a UN peacekeeping force to sit in the valley, and that will ensure that, because they're going to say that is necessary for their defense and national security, that they have every right to what's in the ground. So it's going to be very interesting to see, and it's also going to be very interesting to see as the mainstream media continues to lie and not tell people what the real reason is, the development of this pipeline that's already been basically paid for, what's going to be the future of it. And I would say that for Mr. Bashir Assad of Syria, if I was his life insurance company, I would definitely cancel his policy fairly quickly, because when you have Israel with access to oil for the first time, and you have oil pipelines, and you have Dick Cheney and people like him involved, and you have these people that have glommed on to the Trump campaign or the Trump presidency, then things just really don't look good. And so I think that we're going to see a major conflict fairly quickly in the Middle East, because the problem is, as you see in these conflicts, is always these really poor kids that have to die. And so that's what they, that's why they are rich. So they can make sure that the poor people never become like them. All right, so this is Deceptions of the Ages news. That is what is going to happen in Syria and in Turkey and in Israel. So we'll see you next time on Deceptions of the Ages news.